Welcome to a deep dive. We love unpacking these complex topics, especially for our STEM audience. And today it's something pretty fascinating, I think. It's called the multi-armed bandit problem. Um, Maybe the best way to think about it is, like walking into a casino, right? You see a row of those slot machines.
And of course, each machine has a different probability of paying out. The catch is you don't know what those probabilities are.
Right, right. So your goal, naturally, is to win as much as possible. But how do you even begin to figure that out?
That's the crux of the problem. It's this constant balancing act, between exploring and exploiting.
Exploration and exploitation. Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. Exploration means trying out different machines, just to get a feel for their payouts.
So just kind of playing around a bit, seeing what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's exploitation. That's where you focus on the machine that seems to be giving you the best returns based on what you've learned so far.
Okay, so there's a risk involved.
Mhm.
If you spend too much time exploring, you could be missing out on winnings from a machine you already know is decent. But if you don't explore enough, you might miss out on an even better machine.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of regret comes in. Think of it this way. You play a slot machine 100 times and you win, say, $50. But what if you had only played the machine right next to it? You might have won, say, $100. That $50 difference, that's your regret.
Ouch. That makes sense. Minimizing regret, it's all about making the most of your opportunities, especially when you have limited resources. Like I'm thinking time or money.
You got it. And, this whole exploration versus exploitation dilemma, it's not just about slot machines. It pops up everywhere in STEM fields.
Oh, really? Like where?
Well, take clinical trials, for example. You're testing different treatments. Obviously, you want to find the most effective treatment as quickly as possible.
Makes sense. But at the same time, you need to minimize the risks to the patients involved. You can't just experiment endlessly.
Right. You need a strategy. So you see, each treatment is kind of like a slot machine, the payout. That's how well it works. And just like with those slot machines, you don't have unlimited time or patience, for that matter, to just keep experimenting.
Okay, that's a really interesting way to think about it.
Hmm.
So it's not just about finding the best solution, it's about finding it efficiently and safely too.
Precisely. And this applies to tons of other areas. Take adaptive routing in computer networks, for example. The goal there is to send data packets along the fastest routes, optimizing the whole flow of traffic. Or how about designing a financial portfolio? You're balancing risk and return on investments, right? The multi-armed bandit problem gives us this framework for approaching all sorts of scenarios like these.
So even though it comes from this, simple slot machine analogy, it has these broad applications in all sorts of fields. That's pretty cool. It really does get at the core of how we make decisions, especially when we're dealing with uncertainty.
And the thing is, there isn't just one type of multi-armed bandit problem. We have simpler cases, like the binary multi-armed bandit, where the reward is either a 0 or a 1. Super straightforward.
Okay, but I'm guessing it gets more complicated than that.
It does. There are more complex scenarios, like Markov machines. Here, each arm is kind of like its own little game with its own set of rules and rewards.
So it's not just about pulling a lever and getting a fixed reward anymore. There's more going on within each arm itself.
Yeah, it gets a lot more dynamic. And sometimes your goal might not even be about getting the most winnings overall. Sometimes it's about quickly identifying the absolute best machine, the top performer. We call that best arm identification.
So how you approach the problem, how you balance exploration versus exploitation, it all depends on what you're actually trying to achieve.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to explore more aggressively at first, then switch to exploiting once you have more confidence. Other times, you need to balance both throughout the process. It really depends.
I'm starting to get the big picture here, but I'm really curious about the how. How do you actually put these ideas into practice? Are there like specific strategies or algorithms that help you navigate this whole exploration, exploitation thing in a more systematic way?
Absolutely there are. And that's what we'll get into next.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's dive into those strategies.
So ready to get a bit more into the nitty-gritty of those strategies.
Absolutely. Let's talk tactics. Where do we even start with all this?
Well, a good place to begin is with what we call semi-uniform strategies. They're some of the most straightforward approaches to this whole problem.
Simple. I like the sound of that already.
One of the best-known semi-uniform strategies is called epsilon-greedy. It's actually pretty intuitive when you think about it. Remember our slot machines?
Yeah, I think I can still picture them.
Okay, so with epsilon-greedy, you basically choose the machine that seems to be paying out the most based on your experience so far.
So you're sticking with what you know, Kinda.
Mhm.
Exploiting that knowledge.
Exactly. But here's the trick with epsilon-greedy. Every now and then, you randomly choose a different machine, just to see what happens.
Ah, okay, so you're throwing in a little bit of exploration there, just to keep things interesting.
That's it. And the frequency of those random explorations, it's controlled by a parameter we call epsilon. A higher epsilon basically means more exploration, and a lower epsilon means more exploitation.
So epsilon is like the knob you can tweak to adjust how much risk you're willing to take.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And figuring out the optimal epsilon value, well, that's often a matter of balancing the potential rewards of exploration against the potential losses of not exploiting what you already know.
It's that trade-off again, huh? Okay, so epsilon greedy, it's like dipping your toes into the exploration pool. What about, like, diving in headfirst? Are there strategies that are more, I don't know, adventurous?
There are. We can move on to what are called probability matching strategies. The basic idea here is that you should choose each arm in proportion to how likely you think it is to be the best one.
So if I believe machine A has, say, a 70% chance of being the best, I should play it about 70% of the time.
That's the gist of it. And one really popular probability matching strategy is Thompson sampling. This one uses Bayesian thinking, where you start with an initial belief about each arm, and then you update those beliefs as you get more data.
So you're constantly learning and refining your understanding as you go.
Exactly. It's like, imagine each arm has its own highlight reel of its past performance. Thompson sampling is more likely to pick an arm with an impressive, even if it's short, highlight reel just to see if it can keep up that performance.
Oh, I like that. So it's like giving those underdog machines a chance to prove themselves.
Exactly. And because of this, Thompson sampling often does a really good job of balancing exploration and exploitation, especially when things get a little more complex.
Okay, that makes sense. So far, we've talked about strategies based on randomness or probabilities, but are there approaches that are more, I don't know, strategic? Like they take into account the value of the information they might gain from each choice?
Yes, there are. Let's talk about pricing strategies. These approaches assign a price to each arm. And this price reflects not only the expected reward, the payout, but also the potential value of the information you might gain by choosing that arm.
So it's not just about the immediate reward, it's about what you might learn in the long run.
Exactly. It's about the learning potential. A good example of this is the knowledge gradient algorithm. It calculates how much your understanding of the arms might improve if you choose a particular one. And arms with a higher potential for knowledge gain, well, they get a higher price, even if their immediate payout isn't as high.
So even if a machine hasn't been doing that well, it might still be worth trying if you think it can teach you something valuable about the system.
Right. And this type of strategy is super useful when your goal is not just to find the best arm, but also to gain a deeper understanding of how the whole system works.
Okay, so we have semi-uniform probability matching and pricing strategies, each with their own take on this whole exploration thing. But choosing the right strategy, I mean, it's kind of like solving a multi-armed bandit problem itself, isn't it? So many options, each with its own pros and cons. How do you even decide where to start?
Well, it depends on the specific problem you're facing. Factors like, how many arms there are, how much time you have, and how much risk you're comfortable with, it all comes into play.
Almost like you need a meta strategy for choosing the right strategy.
You could say that, but hey, don't worry. There are frameworks and guidelines to help you out with this. We can dive into those later. For now, why don't we explore some scenarios where this classic multi-armed bandit problem gets even more complex?
Lead the way. I'm all ears. So we've covered some pretty interesting ground with these strategies for the multi-armed bandit problem, but I remember you saying things could get, trickier.
They can. You see, up to this point, we've been talking about slot machines that, just have their own set payout probabilities. What if we added an element of, competition to the mix?
Competition? Like, is someone rigging the machines against me or something?
Not rigging exactly. Think of it more like the environment itself is adapting and reacting to your choices.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How would that play out in the real world?
Well, imagine you have competing companies in a market. Each company is constantly adjusting its strategies based on what the other companies are doing. Or picture online auctions where bidders are strategically placing their bids, trying to outmaneuver each other.
So it's like a game where the other players are learning and changing their tactics right along with you.
Exactly. This is where we get into what are called adversarial bandits. The rewards you get aren't just based on some fixed probability anymore. They can be influenced by an opponent who's actively trying to, make you lose.
So the strategies we've talked about so far, those classic ones, they might not work as well in this kind of setting.
Right. Those strategies aren't really designed for this back and forth. You need algorithms that are, more robust. They need to be able to adapt and learn from the past, but also anticipate what might happen in the future.
So what kind of strategies can actually handle these adversarial situations? What's the secret weapon?
One really interesting approach is called the EXP3 algorithm. That stands for Exponential Weight Algorithm for Exploration and Exploitation.
Catchy. So how does this EXP3 thing work?
Well, it's constantly reevaluating what it thinks about each arm based on the rewards it's observed, even if those rewards are being manipulated by an adversary.
It's like it's trying to see through the noise, figure out the true pattern, even when someone's trying to mess it up.
Exactly, and it does this in a way that ensures you'll get at least a certain level of performance, even in a worst-case scenario where the adversary is playing super cleverly.
Wow, so it's like a safety net, even when you're playing against a real pro. I like it. Are there any other approaches that work in this adversarial setting?
Another one is called Follow the Perturbed Leader. This one's a little bit different. You actually intentionally add a bit of randomness to your choices.
Wait, randomness, wouldn't that just make things less predictable? Doesn't that make it harder to win?
It might seem counterintuitive, but adding that noise actually makes it harder for the adversary to predict what you'll do next. It's like throwing them off balance a bit.
Ah, so it's like a defensive maneuver just to keep your opponent guessing.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes adding that randomness can actually lead to better overall performance in these adversarial situations.
This is really fascinating stuff, but I can see how it can get incredibly complex, all these layers of strategy. Are there any other twists and turns we should be prepared for?
Well, we haven't even touched on contextual bandits. In a lot of real-world scenarios, there's often more information available that can help you make better choices. Contextual bandits take that into account.
So it's like having extra clues to help you figure out which slot machine to play. I like the sound of that.
Right. Each round comes with a context, which could be, well, really anything that's relevant to the decision. In online advertising, for instance, the context might include things like the user's demographics, their browsing history, even the time of day.
So you're not just learning about the arms themselves, but how those arms perform in different situations.
You got it. And this leads to algorithms like LinUCB, which stands for Linear Upper Confidence Bound, and even bandit forests, which leverage machine learning techniques to, model the relationship between context and those rewards.
So contextual bandits are all about personalization. You're using all that individual information to make the best decision in each specific case.
Precisely. And the applications are vast. Think about personalized medicine, where treatment decisions are tailored to each patient. Or recommender systems that consider not only the item, but also the user's current mood, location, you name it.
I'm starting to see just how flexible this multi-arm bandit framework really is. It seems like you can apply it to so many different problems.
And we've really only just scratched the surface. We haven't even talked about things like infinite armed bandits, where the number of choices is, well, infinite, or combinatorial bandits, right, where you have to choose a whole set of arms. It's a huge field.
It sounds like there's always something more to explore with these multi-armed bandit problems.
There is. It's a field that's constantly evolving.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. I always like to end with some food for thought. Any final takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
The multi-armed bandit problem, even though it seems kind of abstract, I think it really highlights how we make decisions in a world full of uncertainty. And that core tension between exploration and exploitation, I think we all experience that in our own lives.
Absolutely. Whether we're choosing a career path or investing in the stock market, or even just deciding what to eat for dinner.
Exactly. And while there's no one perfect solution, I think the beauty of this field is that it gives us these powerful tools, these strategies that can help us navigate that uncertainty more effectively.
It's all about making smarter choices based on the information we have and always learning and adapting along the way.
Well said. The more we understand these principles, the better prepared we'll be to face those challenges and those opportunities that life throws at us.
I love that. Thank you so much for guiding us through this exploration, the multi-armed bandit problem. It's been a real eye-opener for me, and I'm sure for our listeners as well.
The pleasure was all mine. Remember, the exploration never really stops. So keep asking those questions, keep trying new things, and keep pushing the limits of what you know.
Great advice. And until next time, folks, keep exploring. Keep diving deep.